Hi friends, welcome to the Cook with Meg kitchen. We are here with our dear friends at the Egg Farmers of New Brunswick. We are making classic carbonara. This is part of our passport to the pan. We love a good alliteration. And we're taking you over the next few videos all around the world to show you some really, really delicious, super yummy cheese tacks recipes that include, obviously, the star of the show, eggs. So before we dive right in, I have a pot of salty boiling water, very heavily salted, like a good tablespoon, and I'm looking at spaghetti. So I'm going to take my spaghetti. I would say that's about one package or 400 grams. That's actually probably a little bit more, but we have pasta eaters in the house, so it will get eaten. Once your water comes to a boil, we're gonna drop the spaghetti down in and we're gonna let it cook for like 8 to 10 minutes. We're gonna use a spatula and get that tucked down into the water. And we are going to watch it because we don't want that pot to bubble up and over. So we'll give it a minute, we'll watch it, and then we'll come back to it and press all those bits of spaghetti down under the boiling water. That said, I need to go grab the star of the show, 4 eggs. We're back with our eggs. And what I am going to do is set them beside me because for today's recipe, and by the way, there's the recipe. If you are cooking alongside, you've got your recipe handy. We are going to separate the eggs and add them into our bowl. Essentially, we want to whisk together the cheese and the eggs and the egg yolks and get them all beautiful because that is going to create the sauce that we are making. So first things first, let's separate. We're doing 2 full eggs, so they can go right on in. And when a recipe says egg, they traditionally mean large egg. So there's 2 full eggs. And then we are going to do just 2 yolks. So if you've never cracked an egg, I always crack mine on a flat surface. I use 1 bowl to catch the whites. I use my sink to catch the shells, and I just transfer them back and forth until I just get the yolk. I probably don't even need that bowl. I am going to need to wipe up my counter because I can see that I'm getting a little bit of egg white on the counter, and that's perfectly okay. But we will stop to do a little cleanup. We do clean as we go in all Cook with Meg classes. And again, there's that gorgeous egg yolk. Save the whites, they make a perfect scramble. Give our hands a rinse. Give our counters a wipe. And it's time for me to tend to my spaghetti. So let me just give my hands a wipe. You can see it's starting to go underneath the water and it's starting to bubble up. We don't want to bubble up and over, but a nice wooden spoon or a spatula handy. Tuck all those little bits of spaghetti under the water. This is just regular spaghetti. We're making spaghetti carbonara. And then back to our eggs. So we've got our gorgeous eggs, 2 full eggs, 2 egg yolks. I'm gonna set those off to the side because we need to get our pancetta or bacon or guanciale fried up. So I've got a nice good size frying pan, and I took a shortcut. We've come a long way in the grocery stores. This is pancetta, and it would be almost like a bacon without the smokiness. It came already chopped, beautiful, easy to prepare. We're gonna put it all down into a frying pan, and just like bacon, we are going to cook it or render it. We wanna cook it until it starts to get nice and crispy. And that will take, you know, a little bit of time. So I like to turn my heat on to about a medium, and I'm gonna move my burner right off to the side. and I'm gonna let it start to do its thing. First, we're gonna hear the sizzle. You're gonna see all the little white bits going from white to clear or translucent, and that's going to start to get a little bit crispy. So double, triple duty in this recipe. If you are cooking as a team, listen, we love extra sets of hands in the kitchen. So I highly encourage you, if you're able, to cook with others. Have someone on pasta duty, giving it a stir every couple of minutes, watching your bacon or your guanciale or your pancetta, and then somebody can be on egg duty, which is my favorite part. All right, I'm gonna grab a little whisk. Yeah, a little whisk. I'm also going to grab a little spatula. I'll tell you why. When we make carbonara, a classic carbonara, there is no cream. Even though the sauce is very creamy, there is no cream. There is no butter. It's literally eggs and cheese and pasta water. So that's why this is gold. This pasta water at the back is gold. So we're not going to drain it all down the sink. We're going to reserve a nice big cupful that we can use to blend with the eggs and the cheese to make a sauce. But before that even starts to happen, we're going to take a whisk and we're just going to give our gorgeous 4 eggs, so 2 full eggs and 2 yolks, a nice whisk. I say whisk in the beginning and then switch to a spatula because we are going to get our Parmesan cheese stuck if you use a whisk. That started to sizzle, which we love. And then what we've got to add is just a little touch of pepper. I will likely add some salt, but not until the very end. My fun pepper grinder. So a little bit of pepper. Pasta's doing great. It needs to cook for about 8 to 10 minutes. That's starting to fry. And then we are going to add in a good cup of grated Pecorino Romano would be classic, or Parmigiano Reggiano. And I always say, when you can do a recipe that only has a couple of ingredients, try to use fresh eggs, try to use parm that you grated yourself, which is not to say you cannot use parm out of a jar or out of a shaker, but you will get traditionally a fresher dish if you can use fresh ingredients, when you can. Now, the rest of the parm, I probably had a little too much grated, which some would say never too much. We're gonna save that because that makes a good sprinkle on top. You notice I keep going back to my pasta. Not that it's sticking, but we wanna continue to give it a good stir. And then we're gonna use the same spatula to come over to our pancetta, which is now starting to be nice and sizzly. Now, there are different schools of thought on how long to cook pancetta for. I am from the school of I want all the fat rendered. I want all those little cubes of white to turn brown, and I want it to be kind of chewy and a little bit crispy and crunchy. So medium heat, we've got that beautiful sizzle happening like we do with bacon, but I'm going to just sort of pat it down and give each piece its own little real estate. And then we're just going to hang and wait until your pancetta is thoroughly cooked. So at least 4 to 5 minutes, depending on the chunk size. Now you can purchase it pre-cut, or you can purchase, it comes obviously in a bigger, they can slice you off a chunk. Cut it into little chunks because we do want those little pieces. Now regular bacon would work as well. You could fry up or oven bake a bunch of bacon and then chop it up until it's crispy. That works too. We're doing classic, so we definitely are showing you the method that's a little more traditional. And in the meantime, we're gonna keep cooking our pasta, but I'm gonna leave you with an instruction in case you're moving a little quicker than I am. Before you go to drain your pasta, we are going to take a measuring cup, and I'd like you to pull out some of the pasta water, maybe like a half a cup. The reason we're pulling out the pasta water, it's starchy. It's got all of the salty starchiness from the spaghetti, from the pasta, and that is going to help create the sauce that we make in our pan. So I do have a colander down in the sink, but don't drain it until you grab some pasta water. Once it's fully cooked, we're gonna leave it right in the pan. We're actually not going to remove it. We're gonna use whatever fat has come from the bacon or the pancetta, and we're gonna use that to help create and build the sauce. So here's the step. Cook your pancetta, cook your pasta, take out your pasta water, and then we are going to put that pasta directly into the pancetta pan with the fat. And then the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna build that sauce together. So I'm just gonna keep cooking my pancetta. Some people would take it out at this point, but I'm still seeing, if you can, I'll pull a little piece out here. You can still see pretty white. I like mine a little more cooked. So honestly, I say low and slow. If it's popping around way too much at medium heat, you can reduce the heat slightly. Just let it kind of sizzle away. And what's happening is it's called rendering. We are rendering out the fat and we're left with just the little bits of meat, which is really good. There is one more thing that I am going to go grab, and it's some garlic powder. Now obviously you can go fresh garlic, a fresh garlic clove that you mince. I want to encourage you to sometimes use garlic powder because it's a pantry staple, it's easy. This is the dish where if you've got spaghetti in your pantry, you've got a little bit of bacon or pancetta, some parm, and a couple of eggs, you can pull this together. So I'm gonna go grab my garlic powder, and I'm gonna keep it right here because I will add it toward the end of the pancetta cooking. Be right back. We're back. Pancetta is still cooking. I want to give my spaghetti a little test. Now, in the world of cooking spaghetti, we like to do what's called al dente, really for all pasta. It's salty. I used the right amount of salt. It's still really sticking to the teeth. So al dente, the translation literally is to the tooth, but we don't want it to stick in your teeth. You want it to have a bit of spring, but you don't need it to be completely stuck in your teeth. So let's just give that maybe 2 more minutes. I also want to remind you that when you use a pasta, you need to remember that it will continue to cook even after it comes out of that boiling water. So, pancetta cooking, we're getting very close. Spaghetti, pasta, getting very close. We've got our cup because we need to take some of the pasta water out. We are going to add a little bit of garlic, but at the last minute. So if you want to use fresh garlic that you've minced up or garlic from a jar, only add it right at the very end. And I am quite serious about that because garlic is a little bit temperamental and it will burn very quickly. My feeling on it is the last minute. Garlic is a last minute addition. So right before I add my pasta, I'm gonna add the garlic. It will melt in beautifully because it's a garlic powder. So take a look. Can you guys see? There is some fat forming, not very much, maybe like a tablespoon. By the way, this was about a half a cup of pancetta. Most people at this point would absolutely pull it out. I'm still gonna go a tiny bit further, not much, but a tiny bit further. This part is totally personal preference. So, once again, pancetta, almost ready. Spaghetti, I would say pretty much totally ready. The thing with this is you want to move at a fairly quick pace. So we like to say, let's get all of your mise en place, get everything kind of together and ready to go. So your parm was grated before you started, your eggs were separated. Perfection. What do we do first? We grab our pasta water. So we want about a half a cup. That's very, very, very hot. Let me grab a little thing to set that on. Okay. Pasta water is steaming. Pancetta definitely looking almost ready to go. Pasta is sitting in boiling water, but I did turn the burner off. So at this point, it's time to add a little garlic. So I want to go ahead and I want to add like a half a teaspoon. So not only am I adding it on top of the pancetta, I'm adding it kind of to the oil. And that oil is instantly going to be flavored. Oh my goodness gracious, this smells incredible. I'm going to turn the heat down. So now we've got garlicky, almost like garlicky, buttery pancetta. And very carefully with oven mitts, we're going to drain the pasta down into our sink into a colander. We're not going to leave that long. We don't want to burn the garlic. Remember, we took out the pasta water that we needed. We're going to give this a little shake, and then we're tipping the hot pasta. Isn't that a glorious sound? Right in. And I'm going to grab another spatula because this is the moment where we begin to kind of toss and build our sauce. This is the fun part, friends. All right, heat is on a 3, like a medium low. Nice big pan of pasta. It is drying off quickly. So now we need to add our sauce. So what we're going to do, we're going to add the eggy, cheesy deliciousness right on top. And this is where you have to trust the process. Yes, those are raw eggs, but something beautiful is going to start to happen. We're going to start to do this. This is a little shimmy. We're shimmying. We're moving our spatula around and around and around and around. That is a lot of pasta. I would say if you are able to use a little less, trust me, this will get eaten, but a little bit less probably would work. So the cheese is melting and the egg is cooking. But remember we had this glorious pasta water? Let's pour in about a 1/4 cup, which is about half a half. And the mixture of the pancetta with the hot pasta, with the eggs, with the hot water is actually creating a sauce. I definitely need a little more, so I'm going to go in with the rest. So there's a full half a cup. And we're going to continue to kind of do this motion because it is cooking the egg and creating a sauce. The cheese is melting from the heat of the pasta, from the heat of the pan. The egg is cooking because it is saturated from everything. It smells so good. I'm so excited. And if you feel like you need it to be a little thinner, you can absolutely take hot water. We'll let that run for a minute or two. And you can add a smidge more. I probably, in hindsight, could have held back a little bit more pasta water. Here's the thing about carbonara. It's not soupy. We do not need this to be soupy, but we need it to be creamy, and that is literally looking unbelievable. Let's add a little more water, like maybe another 1/4 cup. So I'll adjust the recipe. So you wanna make sure you've got enough pasta water. But again, you don't need to add chicken broth. We're just adding water. This is a classic carbonara. The sauce comes from the egg, from the melted cheese, and the pasta water. And just continue to kind of pull it all together, stirring to create that creamy, cheesy, amazing sauce. And the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna pull it right off the heat. I'm gonna move this right out of the way. We're gonna bring over salt, we're gonna bring over pepper, and we are going to continue to kind of listen to that sound. It's like my favorite sound, the sound of delicious. So, I mean, can we take a look at this? This legit looks like a cream sauce. It looks like an Alfredo sauce, which we literally did not use cream or butter. We specifically used egg and cheese. So let's take a bite. Then we will doctor it up, as my dad says. Oh my goodness. She needs a little pepper. That is flavor central. I think I am gonna add a little bit of salt. And I might even add a tiny bit more. We're gonna call it pasta water. Just a tiny bit more. That's the coolest thing about this particular recipe. There we go. Now we've got a little bit of sauce. If you fold from the bottom to the top, oh my gosh, it is stunning. That is a stunning pasta. We've outdone ourselves, friends. So there you have it, a classic carbonara on the table, literally within 20 minutes. Get your prep done ahead of time, separate those eggs, whip them up, little salt, little pepper, a little bit of parm, a lot of bit of parm. Cook your pasta, and then the secret is the pasta water. One more taste before we go. If you want to make amazing recipes with eggs, stick with us. We are Cook with Meg. We do tons of these. We do one a month with the Egg Farmers of New Brunswick, which we love so much. I'm a New Brunswicker. I live in Alberta. I live in Calgary, but I am a Fredericton, New Brunswick girl. Born and raised. Not born, but raised. My whole family is there. So cheers to you all. Let's do this delicately. That is next level. There you have it. Classic carbonara, passport to the pan. Video number 1, class number 1, recipe number 1, tick. For more with me, cookwithmeg.com. And until next time, remember, we always say it, we are awesome. Bye, everyone. I'm so excited.